Greetings everybody. Welcome to Brian's Table. I'm Brian Singh and today we're going to break down one of my favorite foundational seasoning, Trinidad Green Seasoning. One of the joys of having Trinidad Green Seasoning is it brings a savory, herbaceous, and a succulent note to whatever you use it in. It is so ubiquitous in the cuisine. They use it as a marinade, so you can marinate any meat in it. Sometimes they add it to chutneys, so anytime you're getting doubles or any of the Indian street food delicacies, they actually sometimes take mango, blend it with green seasoning, and that's a chutney, and it's delicious. But there are a number of flavors that truly make it unique, and I'm going to get to that. The recipe I'm going to show you today, it is based on if you look in the link below, Nadira's green seasoning. I have my own recipe, but I live in Canada, and I'm going to be quite honest, it's really hard to get a lot of those authentic ingredients. I don't always get Scotch bonnets or habanero peppers fresh, so I use substitutes. And the other thing too is that some of these ingredients, like for instance, what we call in Trinidad Spanish thyme or pudina, you don't get that here in Canada. And that is also one of the integral flavors of green seasoning. But what I have here and what I'm going to show you is a really good proxy on how to pull this together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just itemize all the ingredients for you, and I'm just going to break it down in terms of how I use it. And the technique could not be any simpler. You just cut them up, put them in a blender, and just grind it down and make a puree, and that's your seasoning. So let's get to it. Here's my list of ingredients. Obviously, if it's a seasoning, you're gonna have your alliums. I'm gonna be using some onion, some green onion, and garlic. It also calls for fresh thyme. I like to use dried thyme because I find the intensity of flavor that much more pronounced, and it brings that lovely thyme flavor that I like in my green seasoning. Salt and pepper, of course. We have some ginger, some lime juice. We're gonna bring some more acid that way. And then we get to the peppers. Traditionally, green seasoning uses a combination of green pepper and Scotch bonnet or habaneros. I could not get fresh habaneros or Scotch bonnet peppers, so I have the dried ones in-house, and I'm gonna combine that with a Cuban bell pepper, which is a little spicier than a traditional green pepper. But one thing that they use in Trinidad as a seasoning pepper is the serranos, so I'm gonna bring a few of those in there to bring more roundness to the pepperiness of the green seasoning. Let's now get to some of the more specialized items that I'm gonna be using today. The dish does call for vinegar, and what they use in the Caribbean is just straight up pure white vinegar. Straight up acetic acid. When you get into vinegar, there's a whole range of possibilities when you think about it. So I'm actually going to be using a cane vinegar here that I picked up. It's made in the Philippines, and it smells a lot like traditional white vinegar, but it has a little bit more of a funkiness to it. And I feel that given the source of it, and given that sugarcane was a big thing in the Caribbean, that this would add a nice little touch to it. Another specialty ingredient is Chinese celery. When you go to the local markets in Trinidad, we have an expression that something looks maga. Not what maga that is typically in the news, but maga in the sense that it looks meager. It looks like it's unhealthy. It looked like it went through a famine, but it's really packed with flavor. So the celery that you get in Trinidad looks nothing like the celery that you get in the grocery stores here. It tends to look a lot more like the Chinese celery, and I find that the flavor that the Chinese celery brings to the table much more in line with what I'm used to in Trinidad. I'd also say that because elements of this green seasoning may have been developed in combination with a host of cultures that have shown up in Trinidad. Because there's a lot of Chinese people in Trinidad, Chinese celery is much more readily available in the Southern Caribbean than regular celery. So I do feel it brings a little bit more authenticity to the table. Now, the most critical element of green seasoning is this. This leaf. I am going to say it goes by the Vietnamese name of Ngo Gai. Again, my apologies for my Vietnamese, but you can get this at almost any Asian grocery store in North America. I'm going to tell you something. For years, I have missed that flavor. That flavor I know as shadow benny or bandanya. It has other names. Culantro, which if ever you get traditional pho soup for a Vietnamese restaurant, the more authentic places do use the culantro in that soup. The other one is pandanus, Pandanus. I know it has an unfortunate suffix to its name, but I didn't know all these names, and thank you, Mr. Google. I now have access to one of the most critical herbs in Caribbean cooking. It smells a lot like cilantro, but it has a lot more sharpness to it. And it also brings much more of a mouth-watering effect. I'm salivating just smelling this thing. It's incredible. And that's that savory note that you get in Caribbean cooking that really is a signature that ties all of these elements together. Let's pull this seasoning together now. One thing I want to emphasize is that green seasoning is not really a recipe per se, but a collection of things that are foundational to flavor. So ideally, you want to be able to get things in a ratio that you like. Do you want to have it a little spicier? Add more pepper. Do you want to have it more in terms of that French style flavor that is familiar with the Southern Caribbean? You could use more thyme. You want to bring a much more Trinidadian forward perspective, put in more of the bandanya or shadow benny or culantro. Want to have a little bit more of garlic? Add more of that. But the one thing I want to emphasize is if you get your ratios right, you got to get the acid right, because the acid is the preservative in this. So to pull this all together, it can't be easier. You just start to take everything and you put it in the blender. And one thing I want to emphasize is I have a Vitamix, and so should you. I really swear by that thing. I use it every day. So there's the onion. I'm going to put in the chopped up green onion, as they call it in the Caribbean, scallion. I'm going to take a whack of these garlic that I crushed. I'm going to take that Cuban bell pepper here. Let's plug that in. I'm going to take that dried habanero. That's going to get blended up. I guess I'm going to use 3 serrano chilies. All right, and we'll put some ginger there. I'm going to put in the culantro, bandanya. I'm just going to tear that there, right? And it requires celery. And compared to, as I said before, we're going to use the celery, the Chinese celery, but one thing that's unique is we use celery leaves in this. Celery leaf is typically, I notice a lot of people throw it out, but it's got a ton of flavor. You can add it to salads and just use it like a regular salad green. It's delicious. All right, for the thyme, I just shake it out like this, crush it up, because again, and it just rains down, and you're gonna get all of those thyme leaves just gently raining into all of the other ingredients, and we're going to blend that up. There's another reason why I like this, because sometimes you get stalks of thyme in your food, and they're very nice about it in terms of you expect that in the Caribbean. They cook a lot of stuff like chicken with bone and whatnot, but it's nice to not have to put up with these thyme stalks. So that should be about right. Shake off the rest there. And I just need to add on the liquid. So I have about, as I said, 3 limes. You want about a 1/4 cup of that. And you want about another 1/4 cup of the vinegar. As I said, I'm using cane vinegar. All right, let's pour that in. And add a little bit of pepper. A little bit of salt, kosher. A little pinch or two. Also acts as a preservative. And let's give this a blend and see what happens. I don't get to use the plunger often, but I do get to use it for this. Brian the Impaler. All right, so let's start on slow. Let's check the consistency and flavor. So consistency, that's near perfect. It's almost like a salsa. Let me see the flavor because I'm aiming for something here. It's got the cilantro bite. It's got the heat from the chilies. Could do with a little bit more salt, but all the flavors there are evident. And I think I'm just going to add a little bit more of the bandanya or the shadow bani. I think we're close. All right, let me do that. And there you have it. Beautiful green seasoning, Trinidadian style. I want to emphasize that if you notice, it required very little liquid because all of the veggies and herbs had a ton of water in it. So that also gets broken down as the cell walls get broken down in the blender, and it creates this lovely consistency. Looks a lot like a green salsa. I'm just going to put this in this jar here. As you can see, it flows quite nicely. And this would keep in my fridge for easily 3, even maybe 4 months. And there you have it. It's green and it's seasoning, and it's very useful in all aspects of Caribbean cuisine. I'd even cook fish in this. It's lovely. Add it to what we call in Trinidad fish broth, which is a fish soup. Delicious. Seasoned duck, go to the river and you have curry duck that's been seasoned in this. It's delicious. I'm most certainly going to be using this as an ingredient in a subsequent video. I'm going to be making my Trinidad stew chicken, so stay tuned for that. So, question of the day, have you ever tried Trinidadian green seasoning? And if so, what do you think of it? I'd really like to know. Okay, folks, thanks again for watching. I really appreciate the time that you've spent with me and encouraging me and the support that you've had in growing this channel, and I'm ever grateful for that. But in the meantime, go out there, try some green seasoning, and you know what to do. Taste the world.